Welcome, everyone. My name is Frieda Nixdorf, and I am here today on behalf of the Work That Reconnects Network, where we are nurturing a regenerative and thriving world for all beings by providing support, connection, and inspiration for the global community of Work That Reconnects facilitators, members, and friends of the network. Our intention is to strengthen the web of the Work That Reconnects community while continually reaching beyond our current edges to weave deeper connections with others who are also contributing to the great turning in diverse and complementary ways. I am here today with Della Duncan for our first in our new series of conversation cafes, where we will be discussing regenerative livelihood for the great turning. Hi, Della.
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Frieda. Good to be with you all. Della Duncan, she, her pronouns, zooming in from San Francisco, Ohlone land here, and really grateful to be with you all. I have the right livelihood calling of a renegade economist, so really happy to explore economics with you all again. It's the second time with you all, and also pathways to regenerative livelihoods, all in this frame or in this area of the great turning. And the way that that moves through me of working as a renegade economist is that I'm the host of the Upstream podcast, doing documentaries and interviews about alternative economics. And I'm a right livelihood coach working with individuals on aligning work and values and purpose, and an alternative economics consultant, as well as a teacher and facilitator of the Work That Reconnects and many other areas of the great turning. So back over to you, Frieda. Happy to be here.
Great, thank you, Della. So let's just take a moment to land. There are still folks arriving. So if you feel called, you can just settle into your seat wherever you are. Perhaps you're standing or lying down. And if you would like, you can close your eyes or just soften your gaze and start to settle into your being. Just settling into your physical being. Calling in your being that is often out there engaging in the world, to being present in this moment, this conversation, this opportunity to engage. And bringing your awareness into your heart center, the rhythm of your heart, the rhythm of your breath. That place of curiosity, of generosity, just opening to possibility. And then just bringing your awareness lower down into Gaia, just connecting with the planet, connecting with this being, this one who is holding us all, this one who has called us forth into all the ways that we are showing up in the world, the ways that we're showing up for ourselves, the ways that we are showing up for our people. And the ways that we are stepping into the great turning. Just knowing that the great turning is here. We are in it. It's not some far off vision. It's right here, even in the midst of the upheaval, in the ways that we can see the old world crumbling, the old world grasping. And even in the often heartbreak of all of that, we are here and we are coming together in conversation and connection and building together our way forward. So let us step together into this moment of conscious emergence. And as you are ready, maybe just placing your hands on your thighs or your chair. And feeling your physical self, and gently opening your eyes as you're ready. Coming into this space. So, welcome. Hopefully you've had a chance to watch the recording from last month's webinar with Della and Sylvia. If you haven't, we'll include a link in our follow-up materials for that. Just want to note from that Della really offered an easing into the topic of economics. Through that offering, she invited us into a word association game, helping us to name our ingrained assumptions and responses and reactions to the subjects of work and money and economics. And so having done that work and continuing to do that work, hopefully your viewing of the recording re-inspired you, and we're ready to just start to delve in. So Della offered us some food for thought in 5 invitations to regenerative economics. And I know that personally, I could really benefit from hearing about those again, and particularly interested in joining all of you in conversation around that and hearing how you're starting to feel into that, how perhaps that is showing up in your own lives, what you're curious about, what you're excited about, what maybe is difficult or challenging. So Della has offered to offer us a recap of those 5 invitations, and I will paste them here in chat so that you have them. Yeah, so Della, do you want to just share?
Yes, I am happy to. Thank you again. So again, this is a recap. This is going back to our last time together, a deepening, and really an invitation for you all to make sense of what I'm sharing in your own lives, in your own lived experience. So the 5 invitations for an economics of the great turning, or how we might align our livelihoods with the great turning, regenerative finances, regenerative economics, all of this. How are we aligning, deepening invitations for that? So the first invitation that I have for you all, for us all, is to rethink economics, to see ourselves as part of economic agents, see ourselves as part of co-creating the economics of the great turning, that economics is not something outside of us or for a group of folks called economists, but it's the way in which we meet our needs, we work together, we organize our social power, who does what to whom, etc. So seeing ourselves as economic agents, also returning economics to its etymology. So economics, oikos, nomos, Greek for household or home, and management. So who is responsible for the managing of our home? Perhaps all of us in our own way are supporting with the thriving of our planetary home together. And this includes the more than human world as well. We are all a part of the co-creating or co-managing or co-evolving of our planetary home. So perhaps to rethink economics is to return economics to its etymology. Another way to rethink economics is for us to return economics to the realm of moral philosophy. So Adam Smith, when he first founded Department of Economics, was a moral philosopher. So this is to take economics from how it's been increasingly mathematized or scientized and return it to this realm of moral philosophy. So just to invite us into being able to question and challenge and go underneath the assumptions of mainstream economic thinking and really ask, what are the assumptions around our relationship with nature, our relationship with one another, our relationship with work, right? and to just interrogate, question, and challenge them in order to move them more into the realm of the great turning. The second invitation is for all of us to design or redesign in harmony with ecology. So in the Great Turning, we can see this in the Gaian structures realm of the Great Turning, Gaian structures or systems design realm. So this would be to live with inspiration and in relation with nature, to partake in processes and in products that are in harmony with ecology, to participate in things like circular economics. So an economics where waste equals food, where we return things to source, where we reintegrate them. There's that piece, but also to recognize rights of nature, to see nature as having intrinsic value, inherent value beyond usefulness to humans. So this is really becoming, humble members in the web of life and seeing our connectedness to it. So to not see ecology as natural resources, but instead as sources of life, and to value that beyond its monetary value, but inherently, intrinsically value that. So that's the second invitation, to redesign in harmony with ecology. And the third is to reassess the goal. Reassess the goal. So this is looking at systems thinking, which is an area of the work that reconnects. Systems thinking, a way of seeing with new and ancient eyes. So this is to recognize that we live in nested systems, to think systemically, to reassess the goal, which is one of the highest leverage points in systems thinking. And one, again, resources, Della Meadows, leverage points, places to intervene in a system. She offers that to change the goal is one of the highest leverage points. And so on all the levels, so in our own lives, what's the goal of our own economies or our own work or our own labor? What's the purpose to it? What are our own metrics? Right? We are attentive to what we measure. So I might ask you, what are your own metrics of success in your own life? And I've asked many people this, and folks have said things like, how many hours of sleep I get? What's the quality of my attention to those around me? How able to be of service am I? Or, how many friends or connections do I have? Right? So there's all these ways we can look at what are your own metrics of success, and to reassess the goal of your own economy, your own work. And then as well in our organizations and our businesses, to reassess the goal means to go post-growth, right? We know that the growth industrial society is bringing so much of us harm and suffering and ill health for both people and the planet. So to reassess the goal is to put growth, profit, and money as a means to an end, not as an end in itself. So to be post-growth in our businesses means to move to a post-growth economic system, such as a not-for-profit business model where profit goes to serve a mission-driven cause, and also to reassess the goal again, triple bottom line, or just rethinking what is the goal of our businesses and organizations to move towards that, centering the great turning in the work that we do. And then to reassess the goal collectively in our towns or neighborhoods or communities or cities, states, and countries, and even globally, means to interrogate and question gross domestic product and the growth of that total exchange in goods and services, and instead to change the goal of our economic systems, our nested economic systems, to something more like the Great Turning, something more like human and planetary health and well-being. And some of the movements for this that I invited last time that I'll call again to mind: donut economics, Kate Rayworth in the United Kingdom, which is a donut shape where she puts the meeting of human goals at the center of the donut, and the ecological boundaries or the planetary needs on the outer ring. So to see that the goal of the economy as the donut is to get us within the donut, to get us within the safe and just space for humanity, where in each of our communities and places, we're meeting the human needs of that place, but we're staying within consideration of the planetary needs. So that's one model, but there's others as well: to center well-being, the economy for the common good movement out of Europe, buen vivir out of Latin and South America, gross national happiness in Bhutan. So many movements for all of us to get involved with on changing the goal in any level of our economic systems. So reassessing the goal is our third invitation for us to take in on all levels, personally, organizationally, and collectively, systemically. The fourth invitation is for all of us to reclaim work, reclaim work. Sarah Jaffe, a wonderful journalist, wrote a book recently called Work Won't Love You Back: How Our Jobs Keep Us Exploited, Exhausted, and Alone. And it was a very difficult book for me to read as someone who really loves speaking about right livelihood and seeing work as part of our spiritual path. But really, I see her work as how work has, unfortunately, exploited many people structurally and culturally, right? So to reclaim work is to say, what is the relationship you'd like what relationship would you like to have with your work? And would it be helpful to reclaim work as something like your right livelihood? So seeing work as part of your spiritual path, seeing work as what we do off the cushion, so to speak, and also expanding our definition of work so it's not just what we're paid to do. So that any of you in retirement, that your contributions too are valid, even if you're not making an income from the ways that you're contributing to the Great Turning. For those of you who are parents, that's contribution to society and to this time of the Great Turning. Anyone who's caretaking of any sort, that too is part of the Great Turning, as well as our activism and our art making. So reclaiming our work is expanding what are all the ways that we contribute to the Great Turning. It's also reclaiming work as part of our right livelihood path or part of our ways that we're contributing to this time. And then reclaiming work is also about changing the structures of work to make them more sustainable, more regenerative and just. So moving typical capitalist top-down businesses to worker cooperatives where they're more democratic and horizontal in governance and more regenerative and just, moving nonprofits, which can be equally as top-down and lack of transparency and can have inequality, to worker self-directed nonprofits, bringing in that horizontal governance space to that space too, moving businesses to the worker self-directed nonprofit / business hybrid model where business or profit is harnessed for social and environmental good, etc. So just transforming the structures and places of our work so that they're more in alignment with the Great Turning. And the last one, the last invitation, is to reconsider who we are as humans. So this is that, moving from ego to eco. This is the realm of seeing with new and ancient eyes of the work that reconnects. This is recalling our place in the web of life, that we are merely humble members in the web of life, co-creators in the time of this Great Turning. To see that, and also to recognize that, yes, we have the capacity to be Homo economicus, rational, self-interested beings, but we also have the capacity to be Homo donans, to be gift-giving beings, gift-giving and connected, altruistic, kind, and compassionate. So which aspect of ourselves do we want to water in our own lives? And we can in our own practices and in our own ways of being with one another. We can water our more compassionate, gift-giving, altruistic, kind selves, as we could also water the other side. And what cultures do we want to create? So what cultures and structures do we want to create? And how could we water altruism, kindness, compassion, peace in our structures as well as our own lives? So these, again, 5 invitations for this call for an economics or a livelihood practitioners of the Great Turning. So again, rethinking economics, redesigning in harmony with ecology, reassessing the goal on those different levels, reclaiming work, and reconsidering who we are as humans. I know that was a lot, but now we get to make sense of this in our own lives. It's okay if only a few things have stuck, but we want to hear what's now sticking with you, what's resonating, what's connecting with you. So back over to you, Frieda. Thank you.
Thank you, Della. Yeah, that is a lot. And I know for me, I'm also a purpose guide. So the piece around reclaiming work and work as spiritual path and spiritual path as my own giveaway is really something that I'm very interested in. And so that's what's really sticking out for me. But we have a whole bunch of people here right now, and I'm really curious to see what's alive for you. Which aspects of these invitations are calling to you, or what are you turning towards in your own life and how you're thinking about economics, or how you're maybe reclaiming work, or reconsidering who we are as humans, and those shifts. So I would love to open it up to hear from some of you, and invite you to indicate with your reaction with your hand up, so that we can see that you want to speak. If you have questions, or if you have examples from your own life, I also invite you to put something in the chat if you have something that's stirring for you. Yeah, how are you making sense of this framing of economics? What's challenging you? What are you curious about? Lucia, you're muted. And can you turn on your camera? Oh, it looks like you're there. There you are. Hi. And yeah.
Sorry, my camera was off because I was still eating a little bit, but thank you so much. It's so interesting to just notice my whole being shift by being in this space, and the way it was opened, and the words that are being communicated. Really, really value this opportunity. First was how incredibly empowering it is to ponder, to just hear the idea of people reclaiming ourselves as economists, because I think for myself, and I'm pretty sure I speak for a lot of people, but I don't want to do that, but it's sort of like this territory that feels very uncomfortable and very other. And so it's just really empowering, and I appreciate that, and I look forward to that, to stepping into that more. And a question that I have, or something that sort of pops up, is talking about the nonprofit model, and knowing that there's challenges there, and I wouldn't say corruption, I wouldn't go that far, but like it's still in a capitalistic system, and it's just something that comes to mind, and I'd love to talk more about later. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you. Is it Lucia? Yeah, I know often it's a lot of fear and anxiety can come up around these topics, and big shifts and change. So thank you. I would love to hear more and open this conversation up in more spaces as well. And I see Ani has your hand up.
Hi. What it has come down to for me is returning to the land in terms of gardening in an organized fashion. I received a small grant in 2011 from a dear friend of mine for a sacred economics project. And we've recently started in this low-income senior community where I live, a garden project where the seniors are planting vegetables and enlivening ourselves by working with each other. It's not that it's an economic specific program, but it is a returning to the land, which I see is vital in all that we do, because the model for it all is the commons. Before ownership took over and colonization took over and hierarchies took over and borders and fences took over. So all I have to say is in regard to that, returning to the land, developing a relationship again with the land and each other, and growing our food. So that's what I have to offer at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Ani. I love that. Yes, connecting around the commons and bringing down those fences and boundaries. Amana.
Hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Unfortunately, I can't get my video to. I just wanted to share what struck me is I'm just really recently I didn't realize this is what I was struggling with till just hearing it, which is I'm trying to figure out if I need to get paid for my work, which is very much directed at social justice stuff. And I've been volunteering for, I'm a lawyer and I've been volunteering for 10 months. And so it seems like money is a huge way we value what we do. And so I'm just looking at that with new eyes as this event happens today. Which is, I'm very grateful for that, because I didn't realize how caught up I may be in that system. And maybe there is a different way to look at it. Just maybe. I'm not sure there is. And I'm not sure how much money I need, and I need to evaluate all that. But part of what is that I just realized is energizing the seeking is the fact that I do equate money with value in terms of my value, the value of my contributions. You know, money is right up very high on the list of even how I feel self-esteem in relationship to stuff that I'm doing that on a good day is really good stuff. I'm just not getting paid for it. So there you go. That's what I wanted to share. Thank you.
Thank you, Mona. I really appreciate that. Yeah, it is important to have our needs met in all the ways that we need to be supported. And how does that, for so long for me personally, I've been putting money at the forefront of that. And how can we break those systems down to still have our needs met? Joe.
Hi, thanks. I just want to share a little bit of my journey because I think it might be relevant for other folks along this way. But for many, many years, about 8 to 10 years while my daughter was young, I was a single mom, and my primary income was as a coach. I started out as a holistic health coach, and I was trying to figure out how to do it really good. Like trying to figure out how to be a really good coach and do all the things right. And so I was studying, best practices and what they teach you, it was at the time also when the coaching industry kind of was just burgeoning. So I started in 2007 and it just really was booming. Like the whole coaching thing really started taking off. And all the advice I was getting was, how to get those 6 figures and how to you can help more people if you're more successful. And it was just this, a lot of pushing for promoting yourself and getting out there and becoming that successful coach. And in my actual practice, I was helping people with their personal transformations, and I kind of shifted away from physical health and more into the deep holistic health of personal and cultural transformation, the more deeply I did that, the more I was like, this just isn't in alignment. And to have my attention and my presence be completely commodified in this way, it just started to clash so deeply that I didn't feel okay about it anymore. And I always gave discounts and scholarships and things, but it just started to feel icky. And so I actually just walked away from that. I kind of threw my hands up from that and said, okay, I need to provide for my daughter in a different way. And it's been a really great journey of just, staying close to my values along the way, even when the bills were struggling to get paid, and even when I was stressed and I didn't have a backup plan, but kind of following that center heart calling. And somehow it's kind of woven me through a variety of different things. I usually piece it together as far as how the bills do get paid. And it's kind of, it's actually, I don't know if some of you know, but I work for the Work That Reconnects Network. And so it kind of led me on a path that put me in this position to help the Work That Reconnects Network and have money made from that. And also opening it up so that I can do more Work That Reconnects facilitating and just be a little bit more free about this. I don't need to make six figures. I can make less money, and I can be really in alignment with my value, and see my work as like a kaleidoscope of different offerings, some of which I get paid for, some of which I don't. And I just do the work and just kind of trust and experiment with how much is coming in each month, and how the flow goes. So I just wanted to kind of share that, like, this is how it's landing for me over these years. I've been kind of on that journey of discovery, and learning to live with less sometimes can be quite liberating also, to be able to center your values. That's all.
Thank you, Joe. Maybe we'll call in another person, Victoria, and then I'll share a few things. Go ahead, Victoria.
I love, what Joe shared and everything I've heard so far. My husband and I have a nonprofit, and we've spent 10 years developing policies so that we can get a program done that would reduce carbon in commercial buildings dramatically. But we spent 10 years with no revenue, very intentionally, that, it's our public service, whatever. It wasn't an issue of money. This has to get done. It's about climate change. So we've done that. And now I would love to create a cooperative around this, because there's some bright livelihood for people who are in the real estate area, and they don't like certain things, but they could do this, which is turning commercial property owners onto a way of financing the improvements so that, they're as close to net zero as possible. So there's a lot of value, that's given to society in that, and people can get paid for that. And I just wanted some advice as where would I start, in trying to put together either geographically or virtually a cooperative, because I can only do certain kinds of things. I only want to do certain kinds of things, and I totally believe, I have a calling to take this work to the country. It's so important. I'm not the kind of person that can pull that thing together very easily. So any suggestions? And I'd love it to be cooperative. I don't want to be responsible for the whole thing.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for the questions and thoughts. I love it all. So just to kind of go with a few of the themes that I'm hearing. One of them, I think the first person spoke about nonprofits. And yeah, I think I realized that nonprofits can be just as hierarchical and lack of transparency and then top down. And so bringing in this worker self-directed nonprofit model, and I'll put the link in the chat for that, felt really inspiring, of bringing in the benefits from the worker cooperatives into the nonprofit space. Can be a really beautiful invitation. And then in the last point, though, around worker cooperatives, actually the same resource, that same group, the Sustainable Economies Law Center here in the Bay Area, they're a really excellent resource in helping people start worker cooperatives or worker self-directed nonprofits. And I'll also put a link in it for a documentary that I made about worker cooperatives and some stories about worker cooperatives there too. But yeah, just in general, the idea of a worker cooperative, one way that I've heard it that I love is like, we think we live in a democracy, and yet in a lot of times when we step into capitalist businesses, we realize that it's not a democratic space, right? And so a worker cooperative or a worker self-directed nonprofit is a democratic space for our workplaces. So yes, they're more regenerative and ecologically just because they have more folks making the collective decisions about them, and they're tied to something called the Rochdale principles. And then of course they're more equal because folks are deciding things like the pay differential and how to allocate profits, et cetera, as well as decisions being made collectively. So yeah, definitely encourage folks to check out the Sustainable Economies Law Center to learn more about both worker self-directed nonprofits and worker cooperatives. And then this other beautiful exploration that we're having around, money and how much to be paid and how much do we need. So I'm reminded of a study and a curve called the Kahneman curve, which is a curve that shows that happiness and income are correlated until a certain amount. And I keep doing this gesture because they actually go up together and then they plateau. And what that graph tells me, that curve tells me, is a few things. One, in our current economic cultures, societies, a lot of our needs are monetized or financialized. So we do need some money to meet our needs. That's a reality. Until we're in a post-growth, post-capitalist, post-money world, we still need money to meet some of our needs. And that graph also tells me, that curve also tells me that there is a place of enoughness. There is a place of sufficiency or contentedness or enoughness. And as Joe pointed out, there's even folks then trying to say, well, how am I even happier with less and less, radical simplicity and whatnot. So that's inspiring too. But just to normalize that, at some point, more money does equal more happiness until a certain level. So an invitation for everyone here is, what is that place of enoughness for you? What is that place of enoughness for each of us? And then related to that, I love this metaphor of a right livelihood garden where we have different plants, right? And the different plants bear different fruit. So there may be some offerings that you offer freely. They're volunteering or they're just simply gifts to this time of the Great Turning. And you do not ask for any financial fruits in return, but maybe they bear other fruits such as collaboration or creativity or joy, right? And then there may be other plants in your livelihood garden that do bear financial fruit, and maybe they're ones that you feel okay with them bearing financial fruit. So there is some work that we feel okay asking for what we need from, and especially when we have that enoughness, that can be a helpful point or question. And one more point about this, Joanna Macy, in all the times that I've gotten to receive workshops and retreats, has been by donation. So just bringing in the gift economy, which I'm sure many of you all practice or know about, but just to say, I've been inspired by that from Joanna and other teachers. And so all of the Work That Reconnects retreats that I offer personally are by donation, as well as the Right Livelihood coaching that I offer is by donation. And I just find that just takes away this tension or pressure of the exchange paradigm, where somebody is directly analyzing that hour or that time based on the amount that they've put in. And instead, I have this feeling of gift giving, and then this experience of them giving a gift to me afterwards. So it's more like turn taking and mutual gift giving. And it just, for me, it really changes the dynamic in a really beautiful way. So that might be another plant in your livelihood garden, is the gift economy model. Back over to you, Frieda.
Thanks, Della. I also am seeing lots coming through in the chat, and apparently a guest of Marcia offered an interest in hearing about folks who are living at or below the poverty line, folks who are living with disabilities. And definitely interested in hearing more about that too. And we can continue the conversation after breakout rooms. I see some hands up, but we're opening up space to breakout rooms because there's a lot of energy moving through right now. And I want you all to have a chance to connect with others. So you'll be in breakout rooms of 3, and you'll have a few minutes to land, and then about 5 minutes, you'll have 17 minutes total in the breakout room. So you can just decide together how you want to hold that space. If you want to just take 5 minutes each sharing, or if you just want to have open conversation, just give yourselves a couple of minutes to connect, and then just continue this conversation. What's coming up for you? What are you thinking about? How you might, how your life could potentially shift as you step into these invitations. All right, welcome back. So how was that? I know that the folks of us that were stayed in the main room, we had some really rich conversations, and I would love to hear from you. So let's open the space up. If you have something that you would like to share about your experience in your breakout room, maybe what you shared within that space, please raise your hand. You can chat as well. But what are you learning? What's moving through you now? In our space, we were talking about the sometimes the emotional experience of finances, and how often that our work is associated with our most basic needs. We were talking about the experience of housing or lack of housing, or facing a mortgage and the challenges of that. And so just recognizing that that is often really physically, tangibly felt in ways that we may not necessarily be aware of, but it's there. We need housing, we need shelter, we need food and drinking water. We need all of that. And often we're balancing that at the same time as we're balancing engaging in the world and showing up for work and showing up for our people in all the ways that we do. So, Victoria.
What I noticed, and I don't know why I would be even surprised, is that we all, whether people have a job or they're retired, they're all looking for, how can I best use my creative talents toward a world that works? And I wonder if there are resources that are specifically for people like that. Like, I want to make a difference in climate change, and I want to do it using the skills and talents I have that I love to use, and I have to make money, or I don't have to make money, or whatever. But is there an organization that, maybe I would love to know if there was a way people can self-serve themselves, because this question comes up everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to gather resources, Della, if you have any resources that you could offer for that, and we can send out as well in our follow-up materials. And if anyone has suggestions, please note it in the chat as well.
I should also say that I think that there's a personal coaching that goes along with this, and some people actually want that too. So it'd be great if you have that. I'm interested.
Great, thanks, Victoria.
And I'll just say, I think that the work that reconnects is that. I think, the getting together with folks, grounding with gratitude, honoring our pain together, seeing with new and ancient eyes, and then the callings and resources, the going forth, that's actually where the podcast that I host came from, was a Work That Reconnects with Joanna Macy. So I absolutely think, I like to participate in at least one a year. I lead 2 a year at least. But I think that is a very much, how can I contribute to this time? And it helps me reground in that, and then come into connection and like resourced into that action. So I would absolutely say the Work That Reconnects can be this as well.
Yeah. I see Marlo and Kitty and Beth. So let's hear from Marlo.
Oh, thank you. I was really impressed. I was in a group with Marie, who is in Switzerland right now, and she talked about this amazing conference that's happening there called the Universe Shifter. And she said there's thousands of people there and young people from the university. So there's always so much to learn. Anyhow, she was talking about how she feels her needs are being met because she knows a network of people who sort of provide her with everything she needs, which, is just giving me goosebumps right now. But I was wondering if you thought that perhaps that was something that took place more easily in Europe than it would here in the United States. So I don't know, just a question. Anyhow, we might want to search out Marie and ask her to uh, elaborate on that. Thank you.
Thanks, Marlo. Kitty or Della, do you have something to say about that?
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, I think one reconsidering who we are as humans is during this time of the great unraveling, if we're to use that frame, there are many ways that communities around the world are turning towards one another. And so some of you may have heard of disaster capitalism, which is the way that disasters tend to be exploited, and financial gain can even come from it. But the opposite is disaster collectivism. And Rebecca Solnit wrote a book called A Paradise Built in Hell. There's a podcast called The Response Podcast, but it's just all the ways that communities right now are turning towards one another. Mutual aid, solidarity, support. So this is all over the world that this is happening. And so, and I think I might have said this last time, but the number one thing that we can invest in right now is community. So wherever you are, to get to know our neighbors, to get out of our homes, to do those phone trees, to support one another before, climate unraveling continues to worsen, or as it, right, continues to worsen. So both and. And then I'll also say in the United States, we have Mark Lakeman, and I'll put the link in the chat here, but he does kind of placemaking, and this is in the realm of urban permaculture. But he has these beautiful stories in Portland, Oregon, of getting neighbors out into their intersections and redesigning the commons together, reclaiming the commons, the intersections, painting murals in the center and creating a solar panel tea station and a cob bench, and just ways that we can activate our commons. So I think we can do this anywhere. And then the transition town movement, one more, obviously comes from the United Kingdom, but there's transition towns all over the world. That's another one of activating place and coming into community and placemaking. So just a few inspiring examples.
I love that. Even in the two small towns that I live between here, in the past 2 years, the main streets have been shut down and they've been reclaimed for pedestrians and dining and convening for markets. And it's been really beautiful to see things like that happening. Beth.
Hey there, thanks for this. Our group had a great talk. One of the things that I brought up was, I'm kind of in that situation of like, I have a job that pays benefits and a secure paycheck so that I can be a facilitator, but also, and I, as far as jobs go, it's at a school, so it's 190 days. So there's a lot of good things, but it is exhausting to like not be in a place where you feel like fully aligned or can't show up as your whole self. So like, I do also recognize it's like maybe not the ideal situation. And then kind of like what was emerging at the end of our conversation was, like we learn through mentors or through like seeing other people. So I guess like I think maybe if our group are kind of wondering, like, is there a place like where we can learn from people who have made this transition, or a mentor network, or even just a book of like amazing examples to show the possibilities?
Yeah.
Well, I'll say in the realm of the Transition Network, Rob Hopkins, one of the co-founders of Transition Towns, he always tells these really inspiring stories. And his latest book is, he has so many books, but one of his latest books is called From What Is to What If. And it's all about the power of collective imagining, which of course the moral imagination is central to the work that reconnects. So it's incredible, inspiring stories of communities that have done what if thinking and have led to social change. So I'll put that as well in the chat.
Thanks, Della. Debbie.
I just wanted to put in a plug for time banks, which there are networks of them all over the world. That's a system where instead of money, you use time as the currency. 1 hour of my time is worth 1 hour of your time, and you put it in a bank. So if I provide childcare for you, for an hour, it puts a credit in the bank. Then I can spend that credit for anybody else who's a member of the time bank and use whatever skills you have in exchange. It's a way to recognize things that usually aren't in the economic system, like caregiving, like art, like all kinds of services. So in some cities like Portland, Maine, for example, there are even doctors in the time bank. It's just a great way to build community and have an alternative economic system going that builds community. And I highly recommend them. Look and see if there's one in your town, and if not, start one.
Yeah, I love that idea where you're giving your time, your gifts, whatever it is, and you have opportunity to be in there and exchange with people through their gifts as well. Are others engaging in that as well? Time banks? Sounds exciting. I'm going to look for one in my town. So others. Did anything else come up for anyone in their small groups? Sarah Jane.
Hi, everyone. I think as I'm sitting here, I'm just thinking what came up in our small group. And I think it's really hit me, a question that one of our group asked. They said, who do we have conversations with about this? And I think the context for that was this person probably wanting to make a personal change, but it felt like a huge change to sort of change their world of work. So like, who do we talk to? How do we make the personal change? And I was just thinking that's about, what opportunities do we have to actually talk about these things? And I mean, one thing I do in my work, and I've realized and made the connection just now, is I give supervision to people, and that is a space where we could talk about what we do, our work. But I guess there's other ways that people do this, that they have conversations. So I thought it was a really good question, actually. Who do we talk to about this?
Yeah, well, we have some resources. Della will share some resources, and it really is about noticing those patterns of the ways that we've been programmed to think about these things and programmed to respond to them in the ways that we're told to show up in the world. And it's, bringing awareness to catching those moments where we get sort of trapped in there, and making those shifts. Joe.
Something that just came up and I just remembered as we were talking is I had the opportunity to take some high school students to the Pioneers Conference several years ago. And one of them was, I had them write essays before they were allowed to come into the program. And so one of the essays that this senior in high school wrote was basically, I want to go because I don't think there's any hope in the world, and I'm just curious if there maybe is. I really am pretty convinced that there's none, and I just want to go and see. And long story short, we had this amazing experience. A lot of information came in, and they had all of these processes around the Pioneers experience. And her takeaway was, oh, I get it that no matter what I want to do in the world, I could do it in a way that helps instead of a way that hurts. And I just that just stuck with me and kind of struck me so deeply. So for us as adults who have a skill set, you know, you have a certain skill set, you might have training, you might have education and a career in a certain path. I think one of the ways that we can apply this regenerative thinking is like, how can I reallocate those skills in a way that is actually serving the great turning? You know, how can I redirect what I'm doing and like what the resources, the internal resources I already have to be helpful and contributing? And I love, Della, I love that you brought up the callings and resources as a great practice for that. And we could even do that on our own. Like you could do that in your journal. Just give yourself some time to really dig deep. What do I have? How can I use it to help the great turning?
Yeah. Likely we're already engaged in something. You know, what are we already doing? Ani.
I want to acknowledge this field that we're in now. I really like the feeling of this field as a Zoom field. It's easier for more subtle things to emerge, to arise, for me, at least, in my own soul. What I'm aware of, as I've contemplated what sacred economics is for a long time, I've come to know that it is nature. The context for a sacred economy as a response to the predatory capitalism that we're part of now. And with nature, what I was led to do was live in process, in my own spiritual path, in my own daily life, to live a day at a time. I've been consciously doing this for the last almost 3 years. And because humanity, me, had to change the way I think, change the way I value, change the context within which I live. And nature is the context in which I live. And living in nature, which is a sacred economy that produces abundance because you give first. You don't, like capitalism, put in one and take out two. You know, you give first. And so the experience, the practice of living a day at a time in the unfolding, because nature unfolds, has brought peace to my soul and balance in my life and satisfaction, because we have to change before our systems change. So that's what I want to share. And thank you for this field, Della, and others.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Ani. That feels like a great place to start to transition. I have been really grateful to be in this space and to, you know, it feels really edgy. It feels like we're talking about something that is taboo. And I can feel myself starting to notice those ways of possibility. And so much of it is about being in these spaces together, convening and exploring ideas and sharing inspiration. So Della, I wonder if do you have any closing remarks? We're going to share some resources before parting, but do you have anything to add?
Yeah, thank you. Well, I think as the as the spiral, the work that reconnects is a spiral, and we come back to gratitude as we go forth. I mean, I'm just, yeah, as I called to mind, to my heart mind, Joanna Macy and the birth of the Upstream podcast in a work that reconnects. I'm just feeling grateful for her and for the work that reconnects and for it bringing us together into this conversation to explore economics of the Great Turning. And I'm recalling Joanna's words, any act with good intention sends out ripple effects into the web of life in ways that we cannot measure or even see. So if we center our intention and we turn towards life in this great turning in all aspects of our lives, then we may not be able to measure or even see the fruits of those actions, but we can see that we are participating and contributing. And one more thing to invite as folks think about, where is my, right livelihood or my calling or purpose? I know this came up a lot for folks. My favorite quote around this comes from Frederick Buechner, and I think I may have mentioned it last time, but just to uplift it again. We are called to the place where the world's deepest hunger meets our deepest gladness. We are called to the place where the world's deepest hunger meets our deepest gladness. So for all of us listening, where is that point in you? What is it that breaks your heart? Where does anger or pain or grief or hopelessness, where does that arise? What area of the world is calling you forth at this time? Where is that world's deepest hunger in you? And where does that meet your gladness? When do you come alive? When do you step into flow? When are you in joy and in thriving? And where do those 2 points meet? And if you do some exploration on those 2 circles and find where that overlap is, that may be a glimpse into something called a right livelihood, or at least something next for you. So wishing you all well on your right livelihood journey. So good to be in community with you in this great turning. And may the benefits of this call and everything that ripples out from it just benefit the web of life. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Della. I know stepping away from this space today with you all, I will be, I have the intention to set an intention to just, what could it be that I'd be stepping into? And I encourage you to explore that, or ask yourself, what could you step into going forth from here? So, yeah. This is the first in our series of conversation cafes. Our intention is to offer them bi-monthly. So the next one will be coming up in August. We will be rotating time zones for those. So this one was at noon, but we'll announce the time zones for those. One would be in the morning Pacific, and then rotating to the evening Pacific, and I'll translate that for you through an upcoming announcement. We also have a webinar coming up on July 23rd with Chris Johnstone and Joanna Macy on their new edition of Active Hope. So I'm going to put that link in the chat. And Della has some upcoming offerings. Just as a reminder, Della is a right livelihood coach, and she offers that on donation basis. So she's available. And here are some of her upcoming events. I'll include that as well in follow-up. And I have some upcoming offerings as well. I'll include those in the chat here too. So, wow. What a great group of people. What an inspiring group of people. I really appreciate you all showing up in the ways that you have, and bringing your voices and your excitement for this topic here. May we step away and notice the ways that we've shifted, our thinking has shifted. So.
I'd like to make an invitation for anybody to save the chat before you log off, because it is rich. There are a lot of resources in there. So if you'd like to save the chat and look back at it, you can click the 3 little dots in the bottom right hand corner next to the smiley face. It'll give you an option to save it. Then you can follow up on all those great links and resources, especially Della shared just so many great things in there, and other people as well.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. So let's continue the conversation, and we'll see what happens. August 20th, it'll be 7 p.m. Pacific time for the next Conversation Cafe. Details about that will be forthcoming. And I hope you all have a beautiful weekend.